course I do. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, yeah.
But you still do it because you know it's important.
Yeah. If you're not nervous, it won't be a good one.
All right, then let's just get rolling. So, imagine waking up one day and your child has changed their gender. No conversation, no dialogue, no even a word spoken, just a new breast and a new vagina. And imagine finding out that the person who tried to stop your child from doing that lost their job. Well, this actually happened to one of our guests who's sitting here today, Kevin LISTER. And welcome to another episode of Classic Conversations.
Bougie, are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Controversy and content. Welcome to Perazim's Classic Conversations hosted by Based and Bougie. So, Kevin LISTER, can I just start by saying, was it always your goal to become a teacher?
Yeah, interesting you say that. I graduated in engineering in 1984. I went into industry. My goal had always been to move into teaching. My plan had been to move into teaching around about 40, and that's what I did. Teaching was a kind of a passion for my family. My grandparents on my dad's side were both teachers. My auntie was a teacher. My uncle was a teacher. So, I kind of wanted to follow the tradition, the LISTER tradition of going into teaching. So it was an absolute sort of passion of mine to go into teaching. It was hard, the transition from industry into teaching was a tough couple of years. The first year or two was really hard, and I was probably a rubbish teacher for those first 2 years. But I think I learned pretty well.
And what did you teach?
I taught maths, further maths, and latterly computing science.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I think teaching, it's a very stressful job because I worked as a teacher's assistant. I was stressed out just as the assistant, but it's a very rewarding job because when you realize that the kids are maturing, not just in education, but in just personality and maturity, you are so rewarded by it. So was that something you enjoyed, just watching these children become better human beings?
Fantastically so, yeah. And I was always amazed, actually. I love working with the kids. I never got particularly stressed about it one way or the other. But it was great to work with young minds, so 17, 18-year-old groups that I was teaching. I was always amazed how mature they were compared with how mature I was when I was their age. They were far, far, far better people than I could ever pretend to be when I was at their stage. I worked with some superb students, bright, intelligent, really powering on. I worked obviously with some students at the other end of the spectrum, and it was pleasurable to work with both. And one of my greatest pleasures of teaching, actually, working with the weaker students and seeing them coming up, and a number of them I've kept in contact with for many years afterwards through Facebook and LinkedIn and so forth. And it's been great seeing how some of those students have developed. And they've come back after years and told me how transformative my lessons and so forth were. So it was great.
So you was definitely an influential teacher.
I would like to think so, yeah. And I think teaching is a unique position that you have in a child's life. And one of the things that I always used to remind some of my other colleagues was that as a teacher, often the students better than the parents know them.
Yeah, because you're spending most hours in the day with them.
Yeah, that's right. And you often will see the students in a completely different perspective to the parents. So often, parents' evening, I'd get the parent coming in and saying, my son Joe Bloggs is a lazy toady that doesn't do everything. I said, well, actually, your son Joe Bloggs in my class works really hard and is putting everything in, and he's got a clear vision for where he wants to go in the future. So often as a teacher, you see your students in a completely different light to the parents, and how that student is obviously an amalgam. How that person is an amalgam of the teacher's experience and the parents' experience.
I'm laughing because me, when I'm with my parents, I'm very respectful because obviously I'm terrified of them. But when I was a student, I was very rebellious, always talking back, always asking questions. So when it was time for parents' evening and they would say this child is very troubled, my parents were always like, wait, what? So can I ask, did you ever get any complaints as a teacher, from students, the headmaster? Was there any complaints?
Yeah, you occasionally get the complaints as a teacher. All teachers get it now. And I think one of the problems that we've got is a lot of schools encourage students to complain.
But did you get any like major complaints? Like your job was almost on the line?
No.
So where did it all go wrong?
So it went wrong when I had a female student. And so I'd moved into New College, Swindon. So at the start of my second teaching year, I had a female student at the beginning of the year who had taught the previous year. She sent me a message on Teams to say that she now had a new name, a male name.
So this was a female transitioning to a male?
Female transition to a male.
Oh, that's my mistake. I thought it was the other way around.
So female transitioning to a male. So she sends me a message on Teams saying, I've got this new male name. Can you now call me this? And the rest of my friends all know about it, so it'd be helpful if you could do the same as well. And it was a very weak, passive request. She didn't speak to me about it. She didn't explain anything at all about her decision. And I looked at her, this is not right. So I immediately raised a safeguarding concern. And I knew at the time there was a big LGBTQ plus push in the college that I was really quite worried about. I was concerned that she was getting wrapped up in that. I hadn't at that stage realised just how deeply this culture had ingrained itself. So I raised a safeguarding concern, and I asked 3 questions on the safeguarding concern. I say, is there parental consent? Is she making an informed decision? And is there a risk that she will self-medicate with testosterone? And then I added further details to it. I said, in light of the Kira Bell case, then we need to be extremely careful. And her academic attainment was not great, and could this be as a response to poor academic attainment? So I submit the safeguarding concern through the normal formal safeguarding channels. And initially, in fact, immediately after sending the safeguarding, I then went down to the safeguarding officer straight away to make sure that she had it, she was going to act on it. And then, anyway, I didn't hear anything back from her for a couple of days, so then went back down a few days later to see where that complaint had got to, where that referral had got to. And I could not believe what I was told. She said that it's not college policy to tell the parents. I said, what? I said, you've got to be kidding me. I felt like the floor was open. I just could not believe what I was hearing.
What was the exact reasons for saying the parents don't need to know? Because that's the most drastic decision anyone can make, completely castrating themselves. The parents don't need to know. What was their exact words for why the parents don't need to know?
Well, she never gave a reason at the time. I said, you just cannot do that. The parents have to be involved. We had quite an intense row. But what I subsequently learned later, after I was suspended, was that there's this gender reassignment policy that the college had that's been written by outside transgender activists. The transgender activists who are writing these policy documents for schools are desperate to get young children across the line and to transition, to feed young people into the transgender machine. The one thing that they do not want is parents getting in the way and saying, we don't want our child to transition.
But then that's the hypocrisy of the transgender movement, is that they make it seem like once you change, it's such a good thing, it's such a positive thing, rainbows, pride flag, everything. So if it's such a good thing, why can't the parents know?
Exactly.
Because they know they're doing something dangerous.
Exactly. Totally and utterly. And the students are encouraged to transition exactly in that circumstance that you're talking about, that it's celebrated, that the students are told that they are brave and courageous and they're making this really difficult decision, and so on and so forth. Well, if it's a difficult and hard decision, why have they been encouraged to make it?
Exactly.
Everything about this movement is contradictory. And that sort of later sort of dawned on me why there was this insistence on not telling the parents. The other 2 questions that I asked was the student making an informed decision? And the safeguarding officer said, well, we didn't ask that question. The other one was there a risk that she might self-medicate, take testosterone? Well, we didn't ask that one either. It was
so they're making the biggest decision of your life, meaning you can't even reverse this decision.
Yeah.
You could potentially not even have children. Can I ask, how old was the
She was 17. She was a child.
17?
Yeah, under 18. So
You don't know anything at 17.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm 25. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
honestly. So imagine 17.
Yeah, and when I was 17, I was hugely immature. Yeah, I could have easily been suckered into making any one of these mistakes, and many other of my students would could have been suckered into this as well. So you're absolutely right. To think that a person at the age of 17 can make an informed decision on something which the college later kept going on, it's a really complex thing. If the college is trying to use in their defence that it's complex, well, how can a 17-year-old vulnerable child possibly make an informed decision? So it was ridiculous. The response to the safeguarding concern that I raised was for the college to then tell the student how to go about changing her name on the college system, how to go about changing her gender.
It's like this rush, like they're rushing to make sure she gets it done.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Not even like let's think it through, let's go to therapy. When you was teaching her, did you ever have any concerns about the student? Did she seem suicidal? Was she self-harming? Did she look like her life was in danger?
I don't know, to be quite frank. I wouldn't like to say so either. I wouldn't like to judge. But she was a quieter student. She was less confident than some of the other students that were around her. And less socially integrated.
But every teenager goes through that stage. There was a stage I went through where I was a bit less confident. It's a little bit shy. It's just puberty. It doesn't mean you have to completely make a drastic decision.
Correct. Yeah. When I was 17, I was probably as socially awkward in the class as my most socially awkward students. So yeah, we all everybody in life will go through these periods where they lose confidence and the social discourse is not as good as they would like it to be and so forth. And what the trans industry does is it picks, it sort of works through schools consistently to try and identify kids in these vulnerable states and then go for them. And it is absolutely appalling.
And what was the parents' reaction to this?
Well, I don't know. I never spoke to the parents.
You never spoke to them?
No.
Do you know if the child ended up transitioning?
Yes.
They actually ended up transitioning.
Yeah.
So she's a full male now.
Well, I don't. All I know is that I was told by the college in the preliminary hearings before my tribunal that she had transitioned. The college had kind of seemed to be almost delighted. It vindicated the response. But what was interesting and what's really super concerning. So I ended up having a short conversation at the end of one of my classes in private with a student, warning her that this is a dangerous decision. Make sure you don't get pushed into it by anybody else. If it's your decision, it's got to be your decision, not anybody else's. Make sure you're fully aware of all the risks and so on and so forth. I said, I'm extremely uncomfy by referring to you as a male. So she went away and decided, she told me she was going to have a think about her decision. She subsequently enters a female maths competition run by an external organisation.
It's another hypocrisy. You're a man, but you're in a female.
Yeah. So I took her decision to enter into this female competition as a statement by her that I'm not confident about being a boy. I actually want to be a girl. So I am even less confident about referring to her as a.
Can I just pause there? So you spoke to her, and she said, "I'm going to think about it."
Yeah.
Meaning that something in her head was telling her this is not the app. Because when you're certain about a decision, it's 100% I'm going to do it. So that just goes to show that she wasn't 100% on it.
Correct.
So why are they pushing children to make decisions that they're not 100% on?
Yeah. So interesting. The college had a diversity and inclusion report that they used to do every year.
It's always diversity, inclusion,
and one of the things that they had in their diversity inclusion report was a paragraph on we are having an increasing number of transgender students, it said. And we are developing our policies with the transgender students and staff and outside organisations to support them. So this was part of the college's thrust for diversity, to encourage the students to transition.
Why do you think they keep attacking the children? Because I feel like the LGBTQ movement, they're very obsessed with indoctrinating children and the youth.
Yeah.
And when the gay movement started, I was for it. First of all, because I was young and I was liberal, but two, because I just thought, okay, these are adults. Surely they should be allowed to do what they want. But until I started to see the push on children, I was just like, hold on, something about this is really dark. So why do you think they keep pushing it towards children?
Well, it's a bit like smoking. in the tobacco industry, they had to try and go for children because their clientele started dying off pretty young. So the industry, and this is an industry, has to get new people coming in. Much better for the people who are much more vulnerable are young people. It's much easier to try and convince a 16, 17-year-old vulnerable child that they might be in the wrong body, and the industry can get more clientele. This is a money-making exercise. This is what this is fundamentally about. And this did not happen in the education system by mistake. This was organized, systemically organized from the top.
No, I was saying this to my siblings the other day, that this has been a slow progress. Like, for example, when I was young, the big topic was always bullying. Don't bully people. You have to be wary of people's feelings this, feelings that. Then it turned to mental health, meaning that your mental state is your reality. That's it. So then they went to LGBTQ. So if someone's raised on, first of all, don't bully and don't use harsh words. You can't say someone's gay or transgender. That's harmful. Then you're being taught, oh my gosh, mental health this. You have to let people's reality be their reality. When you introduce things like LGBTQ, of course the person's going to be like, yeah, that's fine, because they've been grown up and basically propagandized to believe that, one, you can't say harsh words, and two, you can't tell people their reality. So of course this is happening. This is like something that slowly creeped in. But I do want to ask you, like, what made you take that risk of trying to bring it to safeguarding? Because most teachers would be like, let me just keep my job, let me keep my paycheck. I got rent to pay. What made you take that risk?
Strangely, I didn't think I was taking a risk. One of the things I had been taught, been drummed into me from day one in my teacher training, and it's reiterated every couple of years, is that your number one priority as a teacher is safeguarding. If you're in concern, if there's any doubt, safeguarding, and so on and so forth. So it seemed to me, someone thinking of making this enormous change, by default is a safeguarding issue, because of all the reasons that we have discussed. So I raised a safeguarding concern. I expected that a proper safeguarding investigation would be carried out. It's a neutral act on my side. I'm not making a judgment as to whether or not trans is right or wrong. I'm saying it's a safeguarding issue. Over to you, safeguarding team, would go off and ask all the right questions, of which they never did.
So you were doing your job?
I'm doing my job, basically, exactly.
But you ended up losing your job?
I ended up losing my job for it. And,
what was their exact reasons to why they had to dismiss you?
Sure.
What was their words?
Right. So I created a degrading and intimidating and harassing environment in the classroom, and I'd spoken to other students in the class in front of student A, the student who was transitioning to intimidate her.
Degrading and harassing.
Yeah.
Being concerned about the fact that someone's about to make a life-changing.
Yeah. It was complete and utter rubbish. It was a claim that had no foundation at all. But what I think was really got the concern of the college was, so I'd raised this first safeguarding concern. I was then subsequently told to go on a transgender awareness training course. If you can believe such things happen. So I go to this transgender awareness training course. It's run.
Sorry, I'm laughing because how many courses does this country need? We need a diversity course, a multiculturalism course.
This is where it takes a really dark turn.
Yeah.
So I go on this transgender awareness training course. It's run by another college lecturer. She announces her credentials for giving this course. She says that her daughter is now a boy, or basically her daughter's sort of female, presenting it as a male. So that's her credentials. So she's already transed her own daughter. And then goes on to say that she's also been directly supporting 4 other students down the same route. So I thought, whoa, interrupt here. And I asked her, what's the risk of a false positive, given the fact that the consequences are irreversible? This precipitates this great, huge, big row in the training session. She said, you can't make a trans person. So we'll try and tell that to Kira Bell. And anyway, so after that training session, I then raised a second safeguarding concern about this member of staff. And I listed all the stuff that she'd been saying in the training session, the materials and her claim, which she stated in writing as well in one of her PowerPoints about her encouraging other children to transition. And so this is basically grooming. So second safeguarding concern goes in. I then get suspended a few weeks after that. The reason for my suspension was that another student in my maths class, ostensibly a friend of student A, stays behind after class one day and tells me that I've got to refer to student A as a boy. So student A, the student who was transitioning, never once spoke to me or complained or asked me to refer to her as boy. Her friend did. Her friend stays behind after class. And I say, well, I don't think this is a good idea. And she said, well, you've got to do it, otherwise I'm going to put a complaint in. So I said, it's not a good idea because I don't believe a girl can be a boy. There's dangerous side effects and so on and so forth. So she documents everything down, puts a complaint in, and that complaint is then used against me. And that then precipitates my suspension. So my suspension now happens because another student has demanded I refer to student A as a male, and I said to this other student, I'm not going to do that, and because I then raised the second safeguarding concern about another member of staff. So two things together, that was me being transphobic.
So basically, how the school works today is that the students have more control of the teacher.
Correct.
You used to go into school with the teachers telling you and guiding you through life, but now it's the students who have more power. So did you ever get back into teaching? Like, what happened to your life after that?
Well, I can't get back into teaching.
Why is that?
Because after I was suspended and after I was subsequently dismissed, the college then referred me to the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service.
Wow.
The DBS was set up after the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman by Ian Huntley. It was set up to stop child murderers getting access to children. Now, it was set up with the best of intentions, but often the best of intentions can gang off a ride. And one of the things that the DBS were given was this discretionary power, so that you could refer a person to the DBS and say, I think this person has committed this, that, or the other, and therefore should be on the barred list. The DBS can review the evidence, put that person on the barred list. So the college then referred me to the DBS, and the college actually are legally bound to do that. So the college said it was safeguarding because I wouldn't refer to student A as a male. So I get referred to the DBS. The DBS is clearly, in my view, some extreme radical left-wing organisation. They support everything the college says and puts me on the children's barred list. So the college, when they made the referral, made this ridiculous accusation that I'd been misgendering. But I don't believe I had been misgendering. I had referred to my student in her correct gender. They said I created this degrading, intimidating and harassing environment by discussing transgender issues in the class in front of my student, which I had never had done. And it was just a fabricated complaint. The college also got an external consultant in to review my two safeguarding concerns that I had raised. That external consultant concluded that the college had not investigated my safeguarding concerns at all.
Wow.
And they never included that in the DBS referral. So basically they lied by omission. The DBS get the referral and say, put this guy on the children's barred list.
What is the children's barred list?
So it's a list that the government keeps. Have you ever seen Minority Report?
No, I haven't. So
Minority Report it's a sci-fi movie where there's these people who can predict when people are going to potentially create a crime or commit a crime. So you have this what they call a pre-crime. If you were determined to be a pre-crime person, you can be arrested in advance. So the DBS children's barred list is basically a pre-crime list that the government has got. If they think that you are likely to be a danger to children, you can be put on this list, and then you are deprived. You're basically socially ostracized for the rest of your life.
Wow. And how long was you teaching for?
17 years.
So you was teaching for 17 years, but because you cared about the safety of a child, because trans kids are actually 5 times more likely to commit suicide. So you was actually saving that child's life. They've put you on the barred list saying you cannot be around children.
Correct. Because the justification that they used, putting me on the barred list, was, and you won't believe this, but this is on the letter, and I've made the letter public, was because I was teaching scientific facts, because I was against transitioning, because I'd expressed my concerns online. This is absolute dystopia. When you're on the barred list, that's it. You're on the barred list forever. You cannot get off. The only way to get off is to appeal it through the upper tribunal. So I submitted my appeal to the upper tribunal over a year ago. I still have not got a date or a direction from the upper tribunal as to how to get off the barred list.
Wow, that's crazy. That even breaks my heart a little bit because I loved my teaching role. I love children. I love my nieces and nephews. So to think that I can now not do what I love to do because you're stating facts. And this is the dangers of individualism. I was actually speaking to Bob of Speakers Corner, and he said, you have progressive liberalism where everything is about, individuals. It's all about myself and my truth. When there's not any yourself, your truth, there's facts. The facts is you're either a man, you're either a woman. And if you want to be referred to a man, give us a real reason why. And I hope your parents agree with this too. So the fact that they did that to you just goes to show that there's something really dark and very sinister going on in this whole LGBTQ movement. Because I don't feel like it was that deep to take away your job and to put you on the bars list. Like bars lists are for like, right?
Yeah.
And they put you on the same list as these people.
Yeah. And interestingly, it's worked really well for them. Because other than you, since I lost my employment tribunal, the reason I lost my employment tribunal was because I was put on the barred list. I was put on the barred list for basically on false claims. I then lost my employment tribunal. The only evidence against me was that I was on the barred list. Wow. So they were able to prejudice my employment tribunal.
But the thing is, they do things like this because they want to scare people, like, don't even try it. You know what I mean? The teachers who are watching this might be like, no, I'm not even going to step on these people's toes, but children are being harmed in the process. I've seen multiple videos online of kids crying because they regret the transition. They regret changing their gender. They thought to themselves, this was just a phase. I was insecure. I was shy. Like, why would someone allow me to do this? And they even suing the people, the doctors that allowed them to transition. So you was essentially trying to save the student's life. And I'm so sorry to say this, but whoever this student is, if you're watching this, when you do grow older, you are going to regret this decision. Changing your whole, castrating yourself is never a good idea. It does have very long-term issues. You are 5 times more likely to commit suicide because it's unnatural. And you are saving this child's life. I just want to say I'm so sorry that happened to you. Yeah. Honestly, you tried to stand for truth. And this is what Classic Conversations is about giving people who have been silenced a platform to speak. But I do want to ask you, what is your actual opinion on the transgender community and the LGBTQ community?
It's appalling. I think that if you wanted to find a way of undermining society, you could do no better than introduce this movement as a tool, as a social engineering tool, as a destructive social engineering tool. As I said to the beginning, this did not happen by mistake. This was organised by the schools, and to give you a measure of that level of organisation in this country, there's a company called Ferring Pharmaceuticals, a Swiss pharmaceutical company that manufactures puberty blockers and testosterone. The chief executive is a good friend of Putin's. They donated 1.494 million pounds, nearly £1.5 million to the Lib Dems.
Wow.
When the Lib Dems were in the coalition government. So back in 2015, the Lib Dem politicians met with trans activists and the Department for Education and worked out how to bring the transgender policy into schools and how to enforce it in schools through Ofsted, through the law, through working with social services and so forth. This had to happen. And from that, Stonewall worked with Ofsted and worked with the DFE to have the safeguarding guidance changed to support LGBTQ plus coming into schools. This is an organised thing from the top down. And politicians were making money out of it. There's two Lib Dem politicians, Helen Belcher, he's a bloke, and Baroness Barker, a lord and a Lib Dem lord, a Lib Dem peer. And they say they worked in this meeting with transgender activists, with mermaids, gears, and the Department for Education, to bring this into schools, to do what you were saying, to go for the children, because the industry needs a steady flow of children to keep its profits up. And at the same time, this is a great way of trying to undermine society, getting everybody to fight amongst themselves, to break the parent-child relationship, to break the teacher-student relationship, to undermine the education system.
Undermine authority. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. And say, to me, fundamentally, it's also about undermining the education system.
Yeah.
If in the education system we cannot teach the difference between a boy and a girl, what can we teach? Nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. All the big issues of the day that we need to discuss: climate change, the crisis of overpopulation, all those big things. If we can't even talk about a boy and a girl, well, how on earth can we have a serious conversation? How can we encourage students to debate issues, to listen and understand other people's perspectives?
No, it's an absolute joke. It's an absolute joke because of all the things that kids could be learning. The education system here in the UK is rubbish already, because I don't know why I need to learn algebra. I've never used algebra a day in my life, but now we're teaching kids about transgender. And I think they're doing this to almost sexualize children. And I know this because, they have the LGBTQ, but they've also added another community, and that community is the MAPS community. And it stands for minor attracted people. So they are normalizing people. So it's just so hypocritical, because they are normalizing paedophilia by saying, oh, it's okay to be attracted to children, and it's not a problem, it's just a sexual orientation, whilst also putting you on the bars list. So is paedophilia right or wrong? It's so hypocritical. And in my personal opinion, I think the LGBTQ movement is very demonic. I think it's satanic. If you read the Bible, there was this demonic demon called Baal, Baal. You guys should research it. This demon, he's a half goat, half woman, half man. He's just a mixture of everything. That's exactly what they are trying to do to these children. They're just trying to make these children a mixture of everything.
I would say, just further on what you're saying, that the bringing in of the LGBT movement into schools was a concerted effort to sexualize the classrooms. And so back in 2018, before all this disaster kicked off in my life, don't remember, there was a case in the States where a female teacher ended up having a relationship with a 13-year-old student, 13-year-old male student. She got 20 years for it. Okay. Now, I am not in any way saying that what she did was correct. And I wrote a Facebook post. I tried to put it in perspective. So as a male, if that happened to me as a 13-year-old, it wouldn't have done me any harm. And I think, what she did was hedonistic stupidity, has no place in teaching, and she was rightly to be fired. But 20 years in jail, I thought was ridiculous. What I also said, what was hugely concerning me at the time, was this bringing in of the LGBT into schools is sexualizing the classroom. So this kind of idea now where we find female teachers having relationships with young teenage boys, we should not be surprised when we've actually used the schools now as this environment to start, to introduce sex, inappropriate sex, at a very, very early ages. Anyway, one of my detractors had gone through my Facebook posts, and he must have spent hours, and he found this one post where I'd raised my concerns and had sent that into the DBS as evidence of me being a pedophile.
Whilst also introducing the MAPS community.
Yeah. So because I'm challenging that as well, and because I raised that question, that was the other reason for keeping me on the barred list.
Wow.
We can't even have a discussion about the harm that bringing LGBTQ into the classroom environment has on children, on those wider aspects. And they're doing exactly what you're saying. This is a mechanism to bring pedophilia into the classrooms, to bring underage sex into the classrooms.
It's so insane. It's so insane because they bring the people into the classroom whilst calling people who question and saying you can't teach. But if I'm and you guys like it, surely you should let me teach. So it's just hypocrisy, and it's gotten to a point where if I have children, I might just homeschool them because I don't see them this getting any better.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are moving down that
I might
kind
get
of
you to
thinking.
homeschool my children. Can I
Well, yeah, of course, I'd be delighted. I now actually I do private tuition.
Oh,
and I've got a number of people now in your situation who've lost confidence in the
I
education
don't
system.
trust it. I worked as a teacher's assistant, and it's like they're trying to create very handicapped children. It's so weird. I remember I was working in a nursery and a child drew something like a flower, and I showed them the correct way of drawing the flower. The teacher stepped in and she said, "No, don't tell them how to draw flower. Let them express themselves." I said, "It's a flower. Like, shouldn't they know what a flower looks like?" But it's so clear that there's this attack on just sanity, and there's this attack on tradition. So much so that I actually saw online that a teacher got fired because she had a social media page promoting marriage. Why do you think they are specifically trying to attack tradition?
I think it's coming back to what I was saying before. It's part of this movement, effectively, to try and undermine society. For our society to function, there are norms that we need to preserve, and we can move from what we think should be a sensible society to
Sorry to stop you, but even in the animal kingdom, if you look in the jungle, you need a man, you need a woman,
exactly.
You need children.
Yeah.
It's just like biological, but they're trying to disrupt that. Sorry, continue.
And so the norms are now being undermined by people who've got vested interest in doing so. So if you look at in the example that you just talked about, one of the other big things now is the emerging surrogacy industry, and what we've now got is this grooming of young girls has now become systemic and endemic in the country. So we've got this appalling saga that's emerging with the Pakistani Muslim gangs across towns up and down the country. We've got the systemic grooming by the education system of young girls into the transgender industry. And now we've got this new surrogacy industry, which is also going to start grooming young girls to start donating their wombs and their eggs and so forth. So grooming of young girls has now become systemic within our society. And various people make lots of money out of each one of those. There might be other people who see it as a way to undermine our society. There's this linkage between the boss of Ferring Pharmaceutical and Putin, I think, is one that we really need to start exploring. Is Putin encouraging Ferring Pharmaceutical to try and bring transgenderism into the West? I don't know. I've got no idea. But there's a bit of a smoking gun there that needs to be sorted out and checked out. So we've got those potential vested interests. We've also got a society that is in trauma at the moment. We've got we're overpopulated. The world is overpopulated. We have the utter terror and horror of climate change, and young people are rightly terrified about the future. So really everything is happening. We've got industries running out of control. We've had people in Europe, previously in America as well, but now with Trump, that's moving into its descendancy phase. But this kind of idea of trying to better each other by being more holy than thou. So it's a mess of things at the moment, and in that mess of things, I think it's never been more important to try and identify and hold on to our boundaries and be strong about those things that are important in our society. Those things I think that are important in our society are knowledge, the transference of knowledge, the respect to children, the support for young children. Young children have when they look at the future, they see a difficult, tough, hard time. It's the job of people of my generation is to reach out and give as much help and support as we can. And what we're seeing actually is the opposite.
Are you religious, by the way?
No, not at all.
You don't believe in God at all? Is there a specific reason?
Don't believe in God.
You just don't. Is it the teacher brain? Like, I need scientific proof. I need mathematical proof.
Yeah, perhaps that. I can bring up. I think with the church, the Christian traditions in general, the Christian traditions have got the same moral framework that I operate on. You don't look internally to yourself, you look externally to other people to see how other people can be helped and supported and what you can do for others.
I'm shocked you're not Christian, because you have a very sacrificial mindset where it's like, let me go out and help others. And it's unfortunate that you're not Christian, because I genuinely feel like Christ can definitely use you as a vessel to try to save more children. And I don't feel like you will be able to do that successfully until you read the word and understand where this order came from of man and woman. Comes from God. This is not to offend you anyway, but I'm just maybe encouraging you to look into it. Maybe that will give you that zeal to just explore religion. But I can talk to you all day. And I just wanted to say I'm very, very sorry that this happened to you. It breaks my heart because, again, I was once a teacher's assistant and I loved it. So to go down with something as extreme as the bars list is crazy. And you will be teaching my children, by the way. I will be getting you to homeschool them because everything is just gay, 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 gay. I'm so tired of the gayness. You go out, buses gay. I even saw Bin, the gay flag. You watch a movie gay, like, why does everything have to be gay? Can it just not be normal? But yeah, if there's one thing you could say to Gen Z into this camera, what would it be?
The one thing I'd say is learn. Always find out, always question, always try and develop your own knowledge. Listen to others. And come to your own conclusions. But just most of all, learn and try and also always put your feet in somebody else's shoes so you know how they are feeling or suffering or hurting for anything that you do.
Great. It was so lovely speaking to you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was a great interview. It's so crazy that happened. It put you on the monsters.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you put right too?